Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Chase Jarvis. Welcome to another episode of the Chase Jarvis Live Show here on Creative Live. This is where I sit down with the world's top creatives, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders with the goal of extracting valuable insights and helping you live your dreams in career, in hobby, and in life. My guest today is one of my favorite humans. It is Vanessa Van Edwards.
Woo-woo.
Yay! Hug without like messing up our microphones.
Yeah. My mic okay? Mic's
yes,
okay?
and
okay,
make
good.
sure to do this.
Yeah,
with
I
your
gotta
hair.
do this. I have to
Matt
keep it out.
was telling us, keep the hair out. You made it. Welcome.
I made it.
In San Francisco.
I love Creative Live. I love being here.
I love that you're here, and I'm loving that we're going to do what I think is maybe your first long-form interview.
This is the first time I've ever done it.
I remember the first time I saw you. It was on the Creative Live stage, and it was. They said, we got this great woman. She's coming in. Her business is booming. She's got this new. She's taking an emotional intelligence approach to the future, and I mean, I've seen so many Creative Live classes. I just watched with my mouth open and my head tilted, like this is amazing. It was so eye-opening. And then we followed up in Portland.
Yeah.
I had the good fortune of hanging out with you and your hubby on your deck.
Yes.
But the primary reason I wanted you on this show, I kind of leaned into it just a second ago there, which is. You, more than anybody I know, are tuned in to subtle cues and gestures, specifically around emotional intelligence. I think our culture has been very focused on IQ for decades or centuries or millennia.
Yeah.
And not millennia, probably, because that was like caveman time.
Yeah, well, millennia.
There you go.
Yeah, millennia, yeah.
Look at us talking about Paleolithic period. There's a no, but you've crystallized in such a way that I hadn't seen before in a popular culture, digestible way, talking about how to move through the world, like literally, figuratively, how to be supportive and show support, and it's the EQ is the new IQ.
What's interesting is I think that my comfort zone is actually the book smarts. So I know that sounds crazy because I teach people smarts.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, books were like my savior, right? Like I remember this, Mrs. Kane, I don't know if you're out there, in 4th grade, every time the recess bell would ring, and I would go over to her and I would like wait for the entire classroom to clear out, and I would beg her to clean the chalkboards. That time we had chalkboards, no whiteboards, because the playground was terrifying to me. And she would always be like, Vanessa, you have to go outside and play. You have to.
She's like thinking about her own mental health.
Now that I'm old, I'm like, oh no. Like she probably like wanted to get a smoke, like right, like Mrs. K. I don't know. She was like a sweet old lady, and so I would like beg to clean the chalkboards because that was so scary to me. We were like, do homework during class, and so. In a weird way, I've come to learn that people smarts are not only more important in some ways than book smarts, but actually they saved me. In a different kind of a way.
It goes back that deep.
Oh, for sure. I have this theory, and you can tell me if you're wrong.
All right.
I think everyone chooses their career. And I do mean career, not job. So people who are in their careers. They're choosing it for some kind of emotional reason. There's something inside them they have to fix. And I think that has to do, I don't mean to dump so deep so quickly.
No, this is what we're doing. This is the goal.
So when I meet someone, I want to know one basic thing. There's a lot of little things, but one basic thing, which is, what is their self-narrative? And I think that people choose their careers, choose their spouses, choose where they want to live, because they're trying to fix something in their self-narrative. For me, 100%. I remember I think it was reading The Hero's Journey, like about the hero's journey, and it clicked, and I was like, I am trying to fix that moment before recess. Like, I'm trying to fix that.
Oh my gosh, that's so smart. I'm applying your rule to myself right now.
What are you trying
don't
to
do
fix?
that jujitsu stuff on me on my own show.
I'm just curious.
I'm going to block your shot.
No, I'm just
Nothing
curious.
to see here.
But really, okay, like, what, like, you talk a lot about education, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, what are you trying to fix? Is it something for you? Is there something you saw?
I'm gonna take that. I'm not, because it's less about education, and I think more about connecting bridges. There's no question I enjoy being in front of people. I get energy from that. I'm extroverted.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably something around achievement. Like, I know that my parents were amazing. I'm an only child, and for that cuts both ways. And not in the spoiled way. I had upside down Nikes. I had Adidas with 4 stripes. Lower middle class. Oh yeah, I was like
Adidas with 4 stripes.
Yeah,
I've never
like,
seen that before.
Yeah, like just like off-brand stuff. And so wasn't spoiled. But I didn't want for anything. I had all the clothes and food. I had an amazing upbringing. But as just an only child, I didn't have brothers and sisters. I was either like entertaining myself, imagination,
being creative.
Yeah, being creative.
Right.
Or at the adult table. So there was no in between. There was no kids table.
Yeah.
And so I think I had to perform a little bit in order to get recognized. And to be able to hold a conversation at the dinner table, I had to put my nose out there a little bit. And ultimately, I think there's some sort of connection in there about being in front of people. And I know that when I was successful at school or sports or these things, that I got more pats on the back. Okay,
so what I would say, so like hearing that,
I thought we weren't going to
go there. We're going to do it.
Okay,
we're going to do it. So there's this idea about resource theory.
Okay.
So it's this idea, I did not create it, by a couple psychologists who thought that as humans, we are constantly trying to exchange resources. And at first I read this and I was totally turned off. I was like, that's transactional, right? It felt, I don't want to think of, I like the idea of connection being a free-flowing, non-quid pro quo thing. But actually what he argues is, this isn't a bad thing. It just means that there are 6 categories of resources. And in every interaction, our goal is to try to fill the resource that we have the least amount of.
Interesting.
Oftentimes, we also try to give that. So, for example, one of the resources is reputation or recognition.
Sure.
Would be another way to think about it. And so if you know this about someone, you are much better to incentivize them with a recognition play as opposed to a monetary play. Money is another one. For example, one of my employees, I love her, she's wonderful, and I was trying to say thank you for something. And I realized that actually a payment increase or a bonus wouldn't be good, but actually listing her on this project that we both finished together with her picture and her name was a way better gift for her because that was the resource she needed. And they argue that we are looking for the resource that we didn't get in childhood.
Yeah, so it's similar to, there's all kinds of psychology that talks about you trying to fill the need that wasn't met. Yeah.
This was so I have a really hard time with fuzzy subjects.
Okay.
Right, so like when I was little, my parents they'd send me off to camp. Oh God.
Camp.
Camp was horrible.
Most people love camp, but
no. Oh my
this,
gosh.
Like,
just because you had to be with people all the time,
yeah.
right? So I'm an ambivert. So like I switch into extroversion or introversion depending. So camp was like I dreaded it all year long. My parents were like, "It's good for you," because I was like this really shy kid, and they would say, "Just be yourself." And I remember them saying that to me, and it was like they were saying, just make yourself a blonde. Like maybe I could do it, but like I had no idea how. And so the fuzzy concepts of, give people what they're looking for didn't make sense to me. Whereas like learning the 6 categories.
That makes perfect
right, because then I could look at someone and look at all their answers in an interview, or like I take notes about my friends. My friends know I have little matrices for each of them.
Wow. I wonder what's written about me in the matrices.
You have a matrix? You have a matrix, and not a Keanu Reeves matrix, a little matrix. And I write down like kind of evidence, and like then I can have a category. I found that because people's skills does not come naturally, like I can't just show up and be like, yeah, I'll give Chase what he needs. It's easier for me to be like, recognition, right? Listing him is like that is easier for me.
Don't list me on this show. What I would like is for you to feel like you're able to, in this really free-form conversation, add a lot of value. That's it. That I said it in the intro. I like to add sort of actionable stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to switch gears just a little bit, and I would like you to tell, like, how do you describe yourself? Because, I'm sitting here, you got a new book coming out called Captivate, which I got an advance copy of. Thank you for thinking of me.
Yes.
I'm very excited to share it with the world. But how do you describe yourself? Normally, like, that's one of the first or second sentences, and we're already like 5 minutes in here. Yeah. So what do you do or use or say, or what tools, what words to describe what you do and how you think about yourself?
Easy one. So I'm a behavioral investigator.
Got it.
Lead researcher at a lab. We do original research, and I try to, basically my lab...
On mice or on humans?
On people. On people.
Okay, what kind of research?
So it's basically an excuse for me to ask invasively personal questions for my own
See
amusement.
why I'm asking the questions in this interview? You can see where that could go. Right?
Yeah, well, I'm excited. We're gonna turn the tables a little bit later. So basically I try to find puzzles. Always, since my dream career was trying to look at weird inconsistencies. So like, for example, a research experiment we just did was on TED. So I love TED Talks, and I was watching all these TED Talks, and I watch a TED Talk every day at lunch. So I'm on TED, and I search leadership in the little search bar, and up pop 2 talks. One by Simon Sinek, I'm sure you know it.
I know it, yep.
Had, I think, like 45 million views at the time, and the other one by Fields Wicker Murin. You heard of her?
Don't know if
Yep. Yeah. So hers had, I think at the time, like under 30,000. And I looked at these talks, and I realized they were both 18 minutes long. They both came out the same month of the same year. They were both given by relatively unknown experts at the time that they gave it, and they both had almost the same title. Why? Why did one talk go viral and one didn't? Was it just the content? But I didn't think it. How could it just be that? There's something about, I think, the first 7 seconds. So we did a massive experiment where we analyzed thousands of hours of TED Talks.
Wow.
And my research team, they coded thousands of hours looking for nonverbal patterns, vocal patterns, verbal patterns. And we found distinct patterns that
this is so good.
That predict virality.
You guys are so lucky. Pull up your chair, sit down, and take some notes.
Scoot in a little bit, get out your coffee.
Keep going.
Okay, so can you guess? Can you guess? So, what is one of the biggest reasons why a TED Talk goes viral? And I will tell you, it does not have to do with content.
The people who share it.
Oh, gosh, influencers. Okay, that's a good one.
I mean, and not necessarily influencers, but if you are moved, you will share it.
Yes.
In this day and age, share it to get credibility within your own circle.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about being an influencer, but even if you have 10 friends, if you feel like you can add value to others and give them something that it's difficult to exchange and difficult to get back.
That would be actually, interestingly, one of the resources we talked about. One of them is information.
There you go.
So you'll notice like know-it-alls, and I love know-it-alls. Know-it-alls, their good is information. So they're constantly Google checking you. They're the ones who send you the TED Talks because then they get credit for that information.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's interesting you say sharing, because that was a very important piece. The TED Talkers who came out and acted like they were just having coffee with the audience did best. Specifically, and this is a real
I'm sipping coffee.
Numerical thing. Yeah, exactly. See, we're going viral. We're going viral right now.
Any minute now.
Any minute now.
45 million.
The most popular TED Talkers use an average of 465 hand gestures in 18 minutes.
What do you mean?
So our researchers, I love you, they counted every single one in the videos.
Wow.
The least popular TED Talkers used an average of 272 hand gestures. And I first saw this and I was like, wow, like this is a massive difference. You don't get that kind of beautiful science usually. And I was like, why? Like, what is it about that? What I realized is that this matches a lot of the research that when we first meet someone, we like to see their hands. And when we don't see someone's hands, like for example, if I were to put my hands underneath my legs, your amygdala, people watching, would begin to fire because you'd be like,
what is she doing with her hands?
Right, what's her intention there? What's under there? And the more I leave them under there, the more your brain gets distracted and takes away from my verbal message. So the TED Talkers that came out, and they all come out, and they're like, hello everyone, I have such a big idea. We're going to talk about 3 different things, and we're going to break it down into specific ideas. Your brain is like, yay.
I can see everything.
I
feel
can
safe.
see it. Yes, and it's like skimming a book to find the pictures. It's like they're talking on 2 different tracks. So it's like a explanatory. Like if I were to say like I have a really big idea, it's really big. It's huge.
In fact, it's 10 inches.
Yeah, exactly. Huge. Your brain laughs because you're like, it's not big. It's so small. And that's because our brain gives more weight to hand gestures. So adding that is an element of charisma. So hand gestures was one of them. Vocal variety. So when speakers acted like they had given the talk a million times before. And this actually kills me. This is another puzzle because so many speakers, they practice and practice and practice, right? They're like coming on stage and they're like, oh, I just got to practice more. In a weird way, sometimes practicing is actually the worst advice you could get.
Well,
because, like, here's the difference. If I were to say, good morning, today we're going to talk about TED Talks. And TED Talks are very important because they issue the following thing.
Yeah.
Your brain's like, what? But if I'm like, hey, let's talk about TED Talks. So they do this really interesting thing. And so sometimes that over-memorization flips you into...
I can see how that would happen.
Autopilot. So hand gestures, vocal variety, and smiling.
Who knew? So you consider yourself a researcher.
And a writer.
And a writer,
yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to do it right now.
Okay, do it.
She's so nervous about promoting her book. I'm going to promote the shit out of it because it's incredible. It's called Captivate.
Can you curse?
Yeah.
Oh.
I just did.
Can I curse?
Sure.
Oh, wow.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Captivate, the science of succeeding with people. You are the people guru. In fact, I've recommended you to friends.
That's right.
You've gone and spoken.
Yes.
To very esteemed groups based on my recommendation because
awesome.
You're a badass. It's incredible.
I will say, I think that I read a lot of people skills books growing up.
Okay.
I still read them all the time. And I think that the problem with a lot of the research that was out there, at least for me, is it was written by naturally charismatic people. So when you have a book or a blog or a video that's written by someone...
If you have a book.
If you have a book.
She said, you don't need to promote the book. I was like, I'm passionate about the book. I'm promoting the book.
So if you have a book where you are an ambivert or an introvert, or I call myself a recovering awkward person, you read it and you're like, this comes so naturally to them. They say things like, be more authentic. Just find your passion. You know, and you're like, what? Like, I don't know what this means.
It'll be good for you, like
right.
camp.
Yeah, it's like exactly like camp. So I was like, I want to write a book that's like shows my struggles. Because the point is that even if you don't have it naturally, you can still learn it. So that was sort of the goal with it.
Well, that's the beautiful gist behind the book. You're a researcher who researches humans, and when you find things out about humans, you share them, which is, you've got a handful of classes on Creative Live. Yes. That's the one I referenced earlier, watching, oh my God, in disbelief. I find that emotional intelligence is a game changer for so many people. People, whether you call it, actually, well, you tell me, what are some examples of emotional intelligence so the folks at home can go, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Like charisma is a word you just used, but there's probably several others.
Yeah, I think also emotional intelligence it's a big phrase, but it's not just your interactions with others. It's also your ability to self-regulate. So an aspect of emotional intelligence could be someone rubs you the wrong way, right? How do you still make conversation with them? Right, or a boss criticizes you. How do you de-escalate? Like when I talk about bosses, I talk about managing up, right? Like you have to learn how to manage upwards. Like it's emotional regulation. The other aspect is, okay, how do I send the right signals? So the difference is decoding and encoding. So what I always talk about is decoding the nonverbal or emotional signals to read things, and then encoding are the signals that you send out. So it's two sides. And usually people are stronger in one or the other.
Ooh, can we go into this one
yeah.
deeper? Okay.
Yes.
So I have recently made a video where I'm aiming. My wife is introverted. You know Kate
really
well.
I know Kate. Yep.
And what that means, my understanding of that means, is that she gets her energy from quiet, and then she can go out there and does her thing in the world. And everybody loves Kate. When we survey our friends, you get one of us on a desert island, the other one's gone forever. 100% of people choose Kate. Just for the record. So she's very likable.
Yes, she is.
But my video is like, hey, if you're an introvert, I'm a very extroverted person, but I want to make some content that helps you understand some of the ways, because if you're going to try and sell your work as an artist, as a creative, as an entrepreneur, some of these skills that are typically thought of as more introvert or more extroverted might be useful.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get you to change and be an introvert or be an extrovert if you're not.
Right.
And then what are the skills that introverts have? Listening, empathy, some of these other things that are a little bit more maybe leaning that way that you could use to your advantage. And people liked it. There's a lot of really more deep comments. And so I'm curious, knowing that was a thing that I felt like added value. I want to do that more here. So can you be super specific about some of these encoding?
Yes.
No, encoding was decoding,
So decoding is reading others, encoding are
encoding is like, what are some things, and the audience, just as a recall for you that's paying attention to this show, is largely, there are two groups. One, I want to go from 1 to 10. I identify as creative or entrepreneurial, and I'm trying to get my side hustle on or create a living and a life that I want. And the other one is like, I don't know, but I'm curious. And so trying to get to go from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And so just tell a little bit of a story about some encoding.
Yeah, so I think that the first thing is that there is more than one flavor of charisma. Mm-hmm. So a lot of us think of charismatic as the bubbly extrovert, right? Or the like booming presidential personality, right? But actually charisma comes in lots of different flavors. So you have the quiet, contemplative, charismatic person, right? That person who maybe they're not talking a lot, but you can feel their presence.
Yeah.
You have the powerful, imposing charismatic. So there's a lot of different flavors. I think what's more important is to not try to be the bubbly extrovert if that isn't you. The way that I think that you do that, at least the way that I have done it, is the difference between being an ambivalent reader or an avid fan. So think about like the brands or the companies that create the avid fan versus like the ambivalent passive user. I think it's the same thing in everyday life. Like, what are either the people or the places where you're like kind of ambivalent? You're like,
take it or leave it.
I could go out tonight. I guess I could see that friend that I haven't seen in a few months. I could call that old person that I haven't talked to. That kind of ambivalence, I think, is actually more dangerous than we give it credit for. In fact, there's research that shows that ambivalent relationships are more toxic than toxic ones.
Wow.
So they did this study, and I'm trying to remember the details right. So they looked at police officers, and they found that when police officers have more ambivalent relationships, an ambivalent relationship means someone where you're either not sure where you stand, or you're not sure if they like you or not, or you're not sure if you like them. Those are all ambivalent relationships.
Okay.
Toxic, I don't like them, they don't like me, we're not good for each other. The police officers that had more ambivalent relationships were not only less happy at work, they actually had lower productivity, they made more errors. And so this idea of ambivalence is actually really important for introverts.
Wow, yeah, because you can send off that message accidentally.
And it makes you more passive. So introverts, because they get energy from being alone, they recharge from being alone. When they get into an environment where they're ambivalent about a relationship, it makes them be like, why did I come out in the first place? And so it reinforces this idea that you can't have fun out of the house. Wow. Extroverts, you tell me if you're wrong. So okay. I have this feeling, Chase, that when you meet people, even if you don't really like them, you find a way to either find something interesting about them or find something to talk about.
Yeah, because you can learn something from everyone, even if it's something that you don't want to...
This is an extrovert. This is an extrovert. This is an extrovert.
Should I get a tattoo?
Yeah, extrovert. Yeah. So what happens is you can flip ambivalent people into a learning opportunity or a friend, right? Or you're like, no, toxic.
Yeah.
Introverts have a little bit of a harder time with that. It's harder for them to recognize, how do I flip this person? How do I find something to ask about because I'm not comfortable with a lot of conversation? And so it drains them. Like it drains them much more. So I would say, think about the people in your life who fall into that ambivalent category, where you're either seeing them because you think you should, they should. Mm-hmm. You're seeing them because you feel guilty. They're an old friend or a college friend or a situational friend. And then think about how much energy and space you would get back if you said no.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Because every time you say no, you make more space for the right people. Right.
I do believe in people. I believe deeply that if you surround yourself with great people, that it's invariably that osmosis. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
100%.
Yeah, I get it.
I 100% believe that. And the thing about that is that we don't think about energy is a finite research, right? It's not infinite. So you have limited mental space. So why spend
extra limits?
Extra limits, yes. Why spend it worrying about a relationship? And I think that the biggest mistake I made is, for many, many years, I had a lot of ambivalent, almost toxic, but ambivalent relationships. And I didn't know there was anything better. I actually did not know that. And so when I finally found a real, amazing, fulfilling relationship, I was like, why have I spent all these years in ambivalent ones? So if anything, if you're watching this video, to think about, you deserve better. Like, there is something better, and the ambivalent relationships are not worth it.
How do you get out of it? How do you not get out of ambivalent relationships, but how do you find non-ambivalent ambivalent relationships. Even like finding toxic, so you know what you don't want, but more productively, obviously.
Well, actually, two juicy subjects right there. Okay. You can decide which one you want to talk about.
You go down whatever rabbit hole you think you got more game on.
One, breaking up with friends, which is something that no one ever talks about, but it's a thing.
We're going to talk about it right now.
Okay. And the second one, which we can talk about also, is like, how do you begin to create friendships as adults? Like, it's so easy when you're younger. You're in school, you're in class, clubs, but like as an adult, there's no like Tinder for friendships.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well, I think it's Tinder for Tinder.
Exactly. So like, if I want to go make a new friend, like, it would be silly if I like. Actually, this actually happened to me the other day. So okay, so I made a new friend. Her name is Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Yeah. So I was at the gym and I was laying on the mat and I was like, I really should do abs. And I was like laying on the mat, not doing abs, and I was like stretching. You know, I was like stretching my hamstrings. And this girl comes over and she's like, "Oh, is there room here?" And I was like, "Sure." And I was like, and I don't know, like something just took over my body. And I was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "Who was that?"
Who said that?
Like, what? And she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do some glutes. I'm going to Mexico in the next few weeks." And I was like, "Can I do them with you?" And she was like, "Sure." And so like there we were, like doing our glutes in the gym, and we're like chatting about Mexico, and I was like, I made a friend.
Good job, Mew.
And I said to her, I was like, we should be friends. I actually said that to her. And it struck me in this moment that we never, like, that's weird. That's a little weird.
Yeah, you're telling a story about it being weird right now.
Yeah, it was like a very weird experience. But she like totally, she was like, yeah, we can be friends. And so like she works at the same time as I do. But it made me realize that we don't have that skill, nor is it acceptable to be searching for friends as adults.
Oh,
so I think I would love to talk to you about both.
Okay.
I don't know if I have the answers.
Well, let's
Which
go
one do you
there.
want to start with?
Yeah, whichever you prefer. You go.
Let's talk about friends.
Okay.
So do you have enough friends?
I think I do.
So I think most people in our lab, we've asked this question on Twitter. We do Twitter polls all the time. Okay. We've asked people, do you feel like you have enough friends? How many friends do you have? And we actually have them select 0 friends, 1 friend, 2 friends. We like have them select this.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And most people say, I think it was like 78% of people say that they do not feel like they have enough friends. But a lot of them will name 3 to 4 friends they have, which I think means that all of us have this like little tiny part of ourselves that as an adult we're like, maybe I have this best friend that's still out there. Like maybe I can still find them. But it's unacceptable to go friend dating.
It's true. I don't know anyone who's like, we want to experiment and see if we're friends.
Like, yeah, I know. But like you should do that, because if you don't do that, that's when you get into friend breakups. Like for example, I think that it's really hard to know if someone could be a good friend for you in the first 5 minutes of an interaction.
For sure.
And so it's really hard to break up with them. I think the only way to think about friendships is to do it just like dating.
Wow, just like...
I think you should do it just like dating.
I think we're not good for each other.
Yeah. I think we're not good for each other, or I don't think that we make each other better people, right? Like I think it should be the exact same way. The hard part about this is that it's not acceptable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just the thought of it, I was imagining that, and it seems way more awkward than someone who you're actually dating, which is weird because
I know
you're way closer to the person.
Right, and then there's like all these other like topics that could be like, oh my god, like does he not like my kissing? Like, there's all these things that you like worry about with friendships. Like none of that is at play, but somehow it's more awkward.
I love that. That's crazy.
I think it's like a slow step back, right? You can do the slow step
like,
back from ambivalent or toxic friends.
I think I do that through more subtle means rather than through really. Yeah. And are you? Is that your coaching advice? Is to maybe spend less energy? But but it's weird because I don't think I spend energy around trying to break up with people who I don't love. But I'm pretty much at crazy level of optimism.
Right.
So like everyone's gonna come around, and that's why. All right, I gotta process that one. Let's go the other way around for a second.
Making friends.
Yep.
Making friends. So I think that I have not been able to make friends outside of shared interests. And I have this theory, I call it the string theory, which is a very silly way of thinking about how we all have these like giant balls of string that we're carrying around with us. And these giant balls of string are like our interests, our tastes, our values, our history. And what we're trying to do basically when we meet someone, if I think about it metaphorically, is we're trying to give someone else one of our strings. Like, we want to see, like, do we share a string? Like, oh, like, I went to that school. Did you go to that school? Like, we're all trying to figure it out. And so the more connections you have between someone, the easier it is to make friends with them because it literally ties you together.
Got it.
So I think that if you can put yourself in contexts or you make it obvious that you have these strings ready to go, then people are much more likely to then grasp it and make friends with you. And this works out in the research too. Okay. So OkCupid, they do amazing research on data. And they found that when people list very specific words in their profiles, they get more responses. So everything from vegan to tattoos to
it's like a club.
It's an indicator. So the biggest mistake that people make is they try to make their profiles appeal to everyone.
Generic. Yeah, as soon as you're trying to appeal to everybody, you appeal to nobody.
Exactly. And what happens is you get ambivalent relationships.
Oh my gosh.
If you are like,
I think of this in terms of products. Like I like to make products for a very specific group of people. Like that's why a lot of these videos I have introverts. If you're a creative and an entrepreneur and an introvert, this video is for you.
Yes.
Like that's like 90% of the people are just like, I'm not any of those things, so I'm out of here. But for the people who it is, it's like.
So that's exactly what changed my business.
Okay, and humans. You're saying
this is a human behavior. It's an indicator of interest, right? You're saying basically, I'm ostracizing this group of people so that I can find this small group of you, right? Like that's basically what you're saying. And so I originally thought of this in like sort of the dating profile world or friendships, like, you know, wearing a badge or whatever, like it sort of indicates things. But I think in business, this is the differentiator between successful business people and not. For me, in the beginning, I was writing a lot about science.
Yep.
And
I want to, can we use this as a way to go into your business? Okay.
Let's do it. Yes.
Keep going.
We pivoted.
Keep pulling on the string that you gave me from your ball. I don't know. That's not. Okay, we'll just stop there.
I like.
How do you? You've got all this amazing stuff, and I want to. We're going to go down this rabbit hole, and then we're going to go back out because I've got a bunch of more tactical stuff because I know that people are like.
And we can do tactical stuff in business too.
Okay, so give me tactical. Like, how do you make a living? Like,
my business model.
Yeah, what's your business model? Because I know people that would. Well, I know you speak all over the place and you get paid there, but what else you got?
Yeah, so we have two sides of our business. Basically, it's how can I fund original research and writing? That's always the question. We have a B2B side and a B2C side. So the B2B, it's really simple. It's corporate trainings and workshops, occasionally white papers, like doing research for a company.
Okay.
And those are easy. Like I do, 3 or 4 trainings a month, going to different companies and doing like a day-long workshop for them. That's what we did for your friends.
Yep.
The other side is the B2C side. So this is online courses, columns. I don't do coaching. However, we have like kind of a licensing program where we have 112 trainers around the world who teach my exact slides in their city.
Ah, that's cool.
So basically we have science of people around the world. So for example, we have trainers in Stockholm. I'm going to Stockholm this summer.
Nice.
I'm very excited to visit 2 of them. So we have trainers in Stockholm. So if someone contacts us from Sweden, instead of flying me all the way out there, I can say, I have 2 amazing trainers, here are their specialties, and they teach my exact same slides. So they pay a licensing fee to us. Sometimes we take a cut of the business if we direct send it to them. Otherwise, they can run their own business. And so that's the other kind of consumer side. So courses and then our trainers.
Cool.
Yeah.
So writing white papers, doing research, getting research funding, but there's this consumer side of you, which I see, and it is going bonkers because of this emotional intelligence stuff.
Yes.
And I see you coaching people in business, how to be better negotiators. Actually, that's your Creative Live class is about negotiating.
Working on it right now. Yes, we're doing the power of negotiation from a science perspective.
Wow.
So not just like, again, the negotiation tips I would get was like, be powerful, like just stand up for yourself, or like, telling women ask for more money.
Without the tool set?
Yeah, like that doesn't work.
So you're breaking it down and then you're giving them tactical tools to do it.
Yes, based on the research. So those are the kind of consumer-facing things that I try to find. But specifically, that did not work for a long time. So I started my company 10 years ago now. Okay. And for the first few years, it was a lot of trial and error. Specifically, I was coming at it from a science journalist perspective, right? I would write an article and I would try to be like real neutral. cover all the research,
I'm
make sure I
laughing
hit all my
because
points.
I know that's the equivalent of ambivalent.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yay! Yes, that is exactly what it was.
It is.
I was trying to be this appeal to everyone, pop side journalist, and so people would read it. We had readers, very few comments, very few shares, so ambivalent that they would not subscribe to a newsletter, they would not buy a course. And so it was this very frustrating time in my business because I realized I was appealing to people. There was some product market
traction,
fit, just enough traction to keep me going, but there wasn't a hit there. And so finally I decided, you know what, like I'm going to write, I think I wrote one article on being a recovering awkward person. And it was specifically geared towards other people who walk into a room and they're just like,
I feel awkward.
where do I go? How do I stand?
What do I do with my hands?
Exactly. And so, yeah, exactly. And so I was like, I'm going to speak to that people, and if all the other people can just ignore this post. Of course, like that post got 50,000 shares, like it was just insane. And I was like, And it was the equivalent in business of having ambivalent fans, and I think that's the difference, like ambivalent readers versus avid fans. And I'm always trying to go for an avid fan with markers, even ostracization.
Ostracization.
Is that right?
You nailed it.
Yes. To be like, this is not for you. Right? Like, this is not for you, but for you, like this specific person, that's for you. And so I think that when I started to dial into that, it got more sticky from business consumer side.
So that part is the part that I'm watching, the part where people are realizing that empathy and awareness and self-awareness, all that stuff that you coach is so valuable. So now, since I understand a little bit more about your business, I want to go back out and can we get tactical? Like I have watched so many segments like how to work a room, the triple nod. I included the triple nod in my video that I made about introverts.
Yes.
I give you full, like, Vanessa Van Edwards taught me this thing.
Yes. I've been doing it. You've been doing it.
Yeah, the whole time.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. I wonder what else she's reading into my body language here. Actually, the first time I mini interviewed you in the back of an Uber for my Uber Live stuff.
Yes, at South by Southwest.
Yes, it was. It was like 3 years ago.
That's right.
And I touched you, and then I was like, "Oh, super good, glad you're here." And I was like, and then you were 2 minutes. You're like, okay, so that thing you did right there, that's a power move that you're doing like this. You see the thing you're doing with your shoulders. You're doing like this, and I was. I'm part terrified but part fascinated. Like, I better be friends with Vanessa so I can learn so much stuff.
Yes.
But it was
I will say decoding is a blessing and a curse.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is once you learn it, you cannot unlearn it. So, like, for example, one thing that we talk about a lot is the 7 microexpressions. So have you ever seen the show Lie to Me? Has anyone seen that show, Lie to Me? Amazing show on Netflix. You should definitely go watch it. It's about a human lie detector.
Okay.
And the show is based on a real life man. His name is Dr. Paul Ekman. He's who I trained with.
Oh my gosh.
And he's discovered this idea that there are 7 universal facial expressions. And I actually think that tactical wise, this was a game changer in my business as well. Because when you learn how to spot these 7 emotions, you can read people's emotions.
And that cuts both ways.
Sure. So I've discovered things that I did not want to discover, but I would rather live in hard truth than ignorant bliss. Like, always. And so we can learn. Should I teach you a microexpression or two?
Yeah. I don't know if I want to know all of them or not because I'm nervous about knowing some. I don't know if I want to know it.
I'm going to teach you a good one, but I have to also teach Kate, too.
Okay. Yes,
it's only fair that I teach both partners.
Yeah.
If you have a partner, you got to make sure they learn them,
too.
Okay, so let's do, I got to pick a favorite. Picking a favorite microexpression is like picking a favorite child for me.
It's tough. I get it.
Really hard, but I'm going to start with disgust. So disgust, do you want to do it with me? So this is when you crinkle your nose up and flash to everyone. Okay, so this face is the face we make when we smell something bad. A lot of people are like, in business, why do I need to know it? So we have found, we interrogate people in our lab. We do a ton of lie detection research. It's my favorite. I love it. So what we do is we have people, we ask them to submit lies to us on camera.
Cool. Okay.
We ask them to submit lies to us on camera because I want to see if I can spot their lies. So they play two truths and a lie. They make up fake stories. We found is that people frequently show disgust right before they're about to lie. The reason for that is because we hate to lie. We know it gets us in trouble. We know that it's against our identity. Usually people, unless they're pathological liars, they hate having to lie. And so what they'll do is you'll ask someone, so what do you think of the new girl? Oh yeah, she's, and they show that on their face.
Wow.
And it has this kind of self-disgust. By the way, do this space. If you try it at home, it's
good.
not natural. It does
No,
not feel good.
Either, huh?
This is the feeling of, oh, I had to lie about that. Like, that is that feeling. So watch out for this disgust, especially when you're asking someone preference-based questions.
Ooh.
So all day long, you're asking customers or consumers, what do you think of the product? What do you think of the service? You're asking colleagues, what do you think of the new girl? What do you think of the new project? Looking for that is your opportunity
Oh my God,
to say, tell me the truth. It's okay. Like, I'm not going to take it personally. That for me has unlocked so many people, and I do mean unlocked people.
Can you do one more?
Yeah. Okay. One more.
For the folks at home that are listening to this instead of watching it.
Let me explain it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Disgust. I actually like doing just the audio. So for those of you who are just listening, if you could please crinkle your nose up. So raise it up as high as it will go, and then show the upper whites of your teeth. So lift your upper lip, and then say, ugh. That is the face of disgust. Perfecto.
And I'm sure there's varying degrees of that, but that's what they're looking at. Like,
anytime that someone raises their upper lip and crinkles their nose, that is a very unnatural way to have your face.
Yeah.
And so you're...
It's tiring and painful.
100%, because we don't like it. Okay, the last one I'm going to teach you.
Okay.
It's my other favorite. So this is contempt. So contempt is the simplest but most deadly of the micro-expressions. It's a one-sided mouth raise. So just try doing a little smirk. Just like one-sided, either side. Yeah, perfect. So that, most people think, and on our body language quiz, most people think it means boredom. But actually, this is a sign of just kind of contempt, pessimism, scorn. Yeah, we're like, oh, I don't really like it. The reason why this one is fascinating to me...
It's like it, not people. Like,
yes.
Okay, because you said it, and I want to make sure it's like, it's not that you don't like other people. It's like someone in the room. It's like...
It's a feeling of scorn or even a little bit of superiority. That is why contempt is dangerous. Is if you see it in the workplace, if you see it on your colleague's face, or on a partner's face, or if you're negotiating, heaven forbid, there's an element there of the other person thinking, I'm better than this. Maybe not better than you, but better than this. That is a dangerous emotion. Specifically, Dr. John Gottman, he's a researcher up in Seattle. He runs a love lab.
Yeah.
He's like one of my heroes. I like love scientists.
University
Like scientists are my
Washington,
celebrities.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
In the Gottman lab. I
Yes.
know people that have gone to see him. He
He's
can predict like
incredible
lengthy marriage or something like that.
So that's exactly where this comes from. So he can watch a silent video of a couple and tell you with 93.6% accuracy if that couple will get divorced within 30 years. What he's looking for is the simple smirk. He found, after following couples for years in his lab, that when a couple showed contempt towards the other in an initial intake interview, with 93.6% accuracy, they would get divorced within 30 years. Is like we don't hear numbers like 93.6%. The reason for this is because I think contempt is the only emotion that doesn't go away. Happiness comes in a burst, it settles. Fear comes all at once, then you calm down. Anger comes in a vengeful burst, and then you calm yourself down. But not contempt. Contempt is this emotion that sits and it festers. And it grows into disrespect. And that's why, or hatred. And that's why at the end of a really long marriage, you get two people who can't even look each other in the eye anymore. It's because at one point or another, there was this feeling of, I'm better than this. Once you get that, it's an insidious little beast, right? You have to address that contempt. And so in business, I have spotted contempt on people I have almost worked with. Thank goodness.
Wow.
I spotted that
what
contempt.
A tool this is.
It's once you see it, you don't unsee it.
I'm
because
just thinking how powerful it is. It's a very powerful lever.
You see it, and then the question is, so decoding is step one. The emotional intelligence comes from step two, which is, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? Like you see contempt on someone's face, what do you do? So I think that it's, and I struggle with this, so I don't have an answer, but I think...
Oh, killing me.
I have options. You can use it as like a back pocket intel, right? You know, there was something that made this person feel really contemptuous. Or you can choose to address it, which is typically where I go. I practice radical honesty. Wow. I don't know if you know about radical honesty, but...
I'm learning about it right now.
Okay. It's something that I try. I try it with my husband and all my friends, which is telling it like it is. I would rather live in hard honesty than ignorant bliss. And so I'll say, is everything okay? Like, you looked a little upset. So my 3 favorite words for emotional intelligence: upset, overwhelmed, confused. You ask someone, do you feel upset? Are you overwhelmed? Are you a little confused? They will fill in the blank. Those 3 words are like, you tell me what's happening for you.
Interesting. When I was listening to those words, when you asked me indirectly through this example, if I felt confused, I was like, that's sort of insulting, like, because you're asking me if I'm confused, which means that I, for some reason, don't understand something. So you'd be judging my ability to take in the situation.
And then, in that kind of like offense, don't you want to correct me?
Is that the?
That's the flip.
Okay, I get it.
Right. So if I say, and again, this could be like when someone showed contempt to you.
Yeah.
There's like some serious stuff going on there. So saying, are you confused? How does this feel? And they're like, no, I'm not confused. I'm frustrated.
Bingo, they just give you something.
Bingo.
Got it.
Right, and then you got it.
This is, are you starting
that
to
feels
see...
sort of devious. I don't mean it in a devious way.
No, at all, but it can be used for good. This is what I'm asking.
100%.
This is why you're on the show.
And it can be used for fun too, which is, so anyone
Sick
who watches
fun.
The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, I watch The Bachelor for work.
Of course you do.
Yeah, and it's the only way I can get the TV for my husband during Monday Night Football. And I'm in a Bachelorette fantasy league. Real easy to win when you're looking for micro-expressions. Yes, it's my football because if you can read micro-expressions, you always know who's going to go home, right? Because you can see the contempt or the disgust or the fear or the anger, sadness, whatever on their face. So it's also very fun for reality television.
Wow.
It's my only guilty pleasure. Don't judge me too much on watching The Bachelor.
I think we may have jumped fast forward.
Sorry.
No, this is incredible.
Okay, good. We're talking about business.
You have so much knowledge, and that's, again, one of the reasons I wish the show was like 7 hours long. But, so let's go back to a little bit of encoding.
Yes.
Like, what are give us some more encoding things that we can do?
Yeah. So, so we talked about, so let's talk about expressiveness for a second. We're talking about micro-expressions. So another thing that sometimes introverts or ambiverts struggle with the encoding piece is being expressive. Extroverts are very good at it, right? Like, you're better at hand gestures, you're better at facial mirroring, but expressiveness is actually a very important part of our empathetic feedback loop.
Okay.
So empathy, for some people, doesn't come as naturally. Emotional intelligence, everything is a spectrum. Like, you're never like good or bad. You're usually like somewhere in the middle. So empathy is one of these interesting skills that we actually can hone, and there is a feedback loop. So for example, let's say that I'm sad, okay? So if I'm sad, I will make the sadness microexpression. So the sadness microexpression is when I pull my eyebrows together, and then I drop my corners of my mouth, and then I pout out my lower lip, and then I droop my lids.
That's clearly very, very, very sad. You got all of the sadness, the whole universe in your face.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
But presumably it's some of, like, it doesn't have to be all of those to 11, which you just showed.
Right. It could even just be.
Yeah, just.
Right.
Yeah, little eyebrow wrinkle, like a little, like a sad puppy kind of.
Right, and then as soon as I add the lower lip, it really makes me look sad, right? Yeah. And I know, by the way, if I get that right, if I begin to tear up, it's the precursor expression to crying.
Wow.
So you can make yourself cry quite easily by doing the sadness micro-expression.
I mean, it's endless. The amount of knowledge we're getting right here. You folks are tuned in here.
I don't want to teach people how to cry on command. That's a terrible skill unless you're an actress.
I get it. But so if you give me the sadness thing.
So if I give you sadness, you cannot help but mirror that expression. So that is an encode. So for example, if I pull my eyebrows together, you are more likely to begin to lower your lids as well. That is because if you make the sadness expression, you begin to feel as I feel. So our emotions are feedback loops. Women who have been Botoxed in their face feel less emotions.
Wow.
Because it literally stops the feedback loop. So when we're talking about encoding, being a stony face or still face actually harms your ability to feel as the other person feels. The best thing you can do is practice, and this is only with people who really are close to you. Yeah. Don't do this with strangers, that's dangerous, right? I don't want you to mirror strangers. The best thing you can do to a partner or spouse is that when they are feeling their emotion, you let yourself try to mimic what they are doing. So it's not purposeful mirroring necessarily. It's just saying, I'm going to let my body follow them, because you will then feel as they feel. The same thing goes with happiness. By the way, the worst thing, and I see this a lot with introverts who write in, introverts will say, my extroverted spouse always says I'm not happy for them. And the reason for that is the extroverted spouse is like, I'm so excited. And so my husband, I love him. He's a super, super introvert. And he is very, very still-faced. And so like, I'll be like, we went to Harry Potter World a few weeks ago, and I was like running around with butterbeer. I was like so excited, and like eating jelly beans. And this is how my husband enjoyed the park. Are you ready? That's fun. Cool. I'm having so much fun. And like, that is genuinely how he has a good time, but he just doesn't show it on his face. So when I let myself like smile with someone else, you're literally highlighting their emotions for them. So from an encoding perspective, instead of worrying about doing something that's fake or inauthentic, the best thing you can do is actually just to mirror what you see.
Wow.
Because it helps you feel it.
Wow. It's like a pathway to empathy.
Immediate empathy. And we don't think about emotions that way. The other thing you can do, if you just want to do that by yourself, is when you're watching videos and they do close-ups on people's faces, try to mimic it. Just see what happens. A lot of the time, you have to get better at getting tuned into this. If I see someone make a face in an interrogation, and I don't know what they're feeling, and I'm like, what did they feel in that moment? Like, I just asked them a question, and they did this face. What does it mean? I will try to make that face and tune into how I feel. That is a very interesting way to try to literally feel what they are going through.
Oh my gosh, this is so nice. But
It's
there's
fun.
I also just realized in that moment, like, I already know so many things that I want to think about and work and put a pin in these and come back to them. That's one of the reasons the book is expressly useful.
Yes. It's literally
Captivate.
my playbook. I had, so when I was in college is when I really dove into people skills. And recovering awkwardness was just not recovering yet. I was in like full blown awkwardness. I was not in recovery yet. I had these notebooks that I would take notes, and I would add like Post-its and things. And I took the notebooks, 10 or 12 of them, and distilled them into it. So it's what I wish I had been given when I was in school.
It's like the emotional intelligence reference guide.
Textbook to people.
Textbook to people is even better. You worked on that one.
I worked on it. You just softballed it to me. You were like softball, and I was like, woo! I made a sports reference.
Nice job.
It worked, right?
Yeah, you got through that whole awkward thing.
I know.
Awkward no more.
I work really hard on my sports references. So my dad, this is ridiculous. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say this.
You're saying it though.
I'm going to say it.
Go.
So my dad knows that I'm not good at sports, right? Not at all. And he's like, look, you're going to college. You're going to meet boys who like football. You got to have some knowledge of football. And I was like, So he was like, here's what you say if a guy says he likes football. So get them to just stop talking about it. He's like, just say your favorite team is the 49ers, but they were a lot better in the Jerry Rice era. That is all I know about football. Like, in a sentence.
What an amazing one-liner, though.
And it's amazing. And the thing is like, I would get to college and I would just repeat this. Like, I would, like, football or I don't even know. Soccer would come up. Like 49ers are football, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, I would be like, I'm such a fan of the 49ers, but it was so much better than the Jerry Rice era. And all the guys would be like, totally, that's so true.
And you're like, Dad.
And I'm like, and I'm out. And I'm done. Like, mic drop.
I'm just going to go over here now.
and I'm like, and slowly back away to no more football questions. Because, so that I'm working on my sports references.
There you go.
Because I think that they're good analogies.
Nice.
So.
Hit it out of the park on that one.
Oh,
bum. All right, I'm going to ask for another layer of tactics.
Okay.
Just what I'm trying to do is give the folks at home who are listening or watching a sense for the badassery, a sense for the power of the tools that you have to affect change.
I'm ready.
I have already referenced an earlier Chase Jarvis Raw that I did where I referenced you and was talking about the triple nod. If you want to get like you and I right now, we're in a triple nod,
totally.
triple nod off.
Oh, yeah.
If we just like to get the
we're
other
just like,
person talking.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about negotiating for just a second.
Sure.
I know that's the topic of
that's
the topic
coming
of
up.
the class.
Mm-hmm.
Any insight, like if I had to ask for a couple of key levers in negotiating?
Yeah.
Just give me like what is it called? Cliff Note version.
Love it.
Right here.
Yeah. So I think that the most important thing, the biggest mistake a lot of people make before they go into negotiations is they think about value in a way that doesn't serve them. So I like to think about, before I go into any negotiation, I want everyone to put together a little negotiation cheat sheet for themselves. And the very first thing I try to think about is the difference between a vitamin and a painkiller. I'm sure you've heard this idea before.
Oh, for sure. Think about
Okay.
it in terms of products. What are you developing? Are you
Yes.
developing a vitamin or
And I think in terms of products, that's also served me, right? Like, for example, I have a whole product suite, right? And so the power of body language, great class, vitamin product, right? The way that it's branded, vitamin product. It's good for me to learn body language.
Yeah, this is a class on Creative Life that you can buy.
Yes, yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Just FYI.
And so I realized that was a vitamin product, which isn't as sexy. But if I could turn some of the course lectures from aspects of it into a painkiller, it would be much better. So, like, for example, lie detection in 100 minutes, right? Or negotiating for your first car. Like, that's a painkiller. So that worked for me with products. It works really well. Like breaking up a vitamin course into painkiller lectures.
Amazing.
It's a very, very good way to do it.
This is why I get so sucked into your content.
Yeah.
Because it's incredibly tactical. Everything I've ever watched is big idea.
Exactly. Vitamin.
And then
And then I'm like, I just want to like
me.
keep you. I'm like, come on,
got me.
keep watching. So the same thing works in negotiations.
Okay.
However, what you are arguing for can also be split from vitamins and into vitamins and painkillers. So, for example, if you're negotiating with someone, you're pitching a company on bringing you in as a speaker, right? And you have to negotiate your rates and if they're going to bring you. A vitamin would be, this training will be great for your sales team, right? It'd be so good for them to know body language. It would be so good for them to know these tactics. That's a vitamin, right? They could book you anytime, anywhere. A painkiller, and you have to really work at finding these in a negotiation, would be, I'm going to help your retention over the next 5 months. Or you find out in the rapport building process that their goals are, he's a new manager and he has no idea how to lead them. So it would be, this is going to help your employees bond with you in 1 day, right, as a manager.
Pow.
Pow, right? That is a painkiller. That's like, I don't want to wait for this. And that's what you're trying to think of in negotiation is, I don't want to put this deal off. I definitely want to buy it now, whatever it is, and I'm going to have to pay premium for it. And I think that you said something, there was an interview I listened to, correct me if I'm wrong,
All right. Go ahead.
many years ago with you and Tim Ferriss.
Okay.
And I believe you said that a turning point in your career was when you like tripled your rates.
Yes.
I think that that's the other aspect here, is that people perceive value when you put value on it first. Was it tripled your rates?
At least.
At least. At least.
I just decided, I made a very proactive decision that I would rather work for fewer people at higher rates on things that I cared about.
Yeah.
And I realized also that it's somewhat, you got to be careful of, because you're putting yourself in a privileged position.
Yeah.
But I would rather risk not working, and then when things started to happen in the way I wanted it to happen, that was going to be a better outcome for me.
Yeah.
And I actually just thought, like, well, what happens if it doesn't work? I can always do the opposite.
Exactly.
And so I started framing it that way, and it was incredibly effective.
So I have to thank you for that piece of advice, because I heard that podcast. I had started listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast chronologically.
Maybe it was Ramit. Was it Ramit Sethi? Or no, I think
know
it was
it was Tim Ferriss.
Yep.
I mean, you might have mentioned it with Ramit too.
Yeah.
But so I started listening to Tim Ferriss chronologically. I wanted to hear him grow as an interviewer, because he says that interviewing is a skill.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
it's a skill. And so I wanted to hear him grow from interview 1. I think you're interview 4. Everyone should listen to it. It's amazing.
Thank you.
So I heard that piece of advice.
Tim, just FYI, he experimented on all his friends. His first 10 podcasts.
As you should.
Me and Kevin Rose and
Yeah.
these people he's known as, it was fun. And I was like, all right, great. I'll be your guinea pig. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
as you should. And and it's still a really good show. So I heard that piece of advice. And of course, as with all advice, that's hard.
Yeah.
That advice was scary to me, the idea of raising or even tripling my rates. And so I was like, I know I should do that eventually. Right? Like, wrote it down in a notebook, closed the notebook, and listened to the next interview. But it was in there. And then you recommended me to a friend of yours to speak. And I remember you called me, and I was at a friend's wedding, right before the wedding, and you called me and you were like, I will recommend you to this person, but you must triple your rates.
Yeah.
You have to charge this amount. That amount terrified me. Like, the amount that you said on the phone, I was like,
Yeah.
like, it terrified me. You're like, you have to ask that. Like, I will not recommend you unless you ask that. That was the first time I'd ever tried to charge that rate, and now that's the only rate I charge.
It's amazing.
So,
and I referenced several times since then.
Yes. So
Keep doing that.
I think that value, when we think about value, so the first is the vitamin and painkiller.
Yeah.
People will pay more for you, and you will be able to justify a very high rate, which everyone should triple their rates. Just mark that in the little notebook. Everyone should triple their rates. If you are solving painkillers. In fact, I define value as how many problems you are solving for the other person. That is how you know what to charge. People always ask me, like, how do I know what to charge? Count how many of their problems you're solving. For every problem, add another 1,000, or add another 100, or add another 20, whatever bracket, sandbox you're in. I think that's the biggest mistake we hear when it comes to pricing yourself.
Is one of the things that I give advice on. I'd be curious to get your feedback since you're a master negotiator. Is to think of the solution that you would provide, what sort of value that would bring if you were to provide a valuable solution.
Yes.
And I usually try and find that out by asking a lot of questions before you even start talking about price. So can you give me an example of how you might put that into practice?
Yeah, so I always think about prepping for negotiation in sort of 3 parts: before, during, after. People usually don't even do anything before. So even doing any kind of research ahead of time. The very first step to during is asking. A lot of people, they go right into a pitch, or they go right into asking for a lot. Actually, the best thing you can do is do either rapport building questions, which are, how's your family? How's everything going? But the second kind of question is even more important, which are incentive questions. And this is where all you're trying to do, your only goal during this time, only one, is not to make more money, it's not to win, it's to be able to say, me too. The more that you can say some version of, me too, I also do that, oh yeah, I feel the same way. Every time you do that, you are kind of exchanging a kind of value ahead of time. We don't like to take money from people, or we don't like to hurt people who are like us, because that's like hurting us. So in the first part of a negotiation, all you are trying to think about is, how can I make this person feel more like me? What are our similarities or our strings that we have? Because you are going to have a much easier time negotiating with someone who identifies with you.
So that's the first part of during. That's amazing.
The very first.
Insightful.
So asking is it, and taking it one step further, asking for me toos. And this can be let's be tactical. Let's dive into
here
it.
We are.
Okay, so how do you do that when you get into an interview? First question I love to ask before I get into negotiation is, anything good to report? What's been happening? So humans are a very interesting species where they always search for examples. They search for hits, not misses. This is why fortune tellers work. So fortune tellers will say, you're very good with new people. Your brain will immediately search for hits for that as opposed to misses. So even if you can only think of one example in the last year, you're like, I was great with that person. I was. Or this is a great, here's a fortune teller. Every fortune teller will tell you, you are great with adapting situations, but like to have your rituals and habits. And what do you think? You're like, oh, those are the times where I like my rituals and habits, and oh, those are the times where I like to
You do the
change
describing.
it.
Yeah.
So you search for hits. So in a negotiation, if you're saying, how anything good to report, and working on anything exciting recently, they will search for the best thing that's happening in their life at that moment. That is an amazing way to start an interaction.
Wow.
One, you're setting them up for positivity, which is a very easy way to flip someone into optimism. Second is hopefully they're going to say something like, yeah, I had a great holidays. It was really lovely. You could say, oh, me too. Don't you just love the holiday? Whatever it is, right? Or oh, my son played soccer this weekend. Oh, I used to play soccer. Right, that gives you all these really good opportunities for me too. And so that's how I would actually start your negotiations, is anything good to report, working on anything exciting recently, tell me about big news in your industry. Those are the questions that are going to set you up for success.
Great. So this is right in line with this video that I made using you as a reference,
Yeah.
getting people to talk so that you can agree with them.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't even know I was doing it, but there I go.
Yes.
See, I'm learning from
It's like
you.
osmosis.
Yes. Okay, so that's the during.
That's the during. Yep. So before is thinking about those vitamins and painkillers and being ready for them in a certain sense. The biggest hurdle in negotiations, I think, for a lot of people is preventing gotcha moments. So you know a gotcha moment?
I think you're going to tell me.
So like a gotcha moment is when you're in a negotiation or you're in a meeting and someone goes, well, what about? And you're like, good. And they're like, gotcha. Like, unfortunately, we are always as humans waiting for the other shoe to drop. And this happens in dates. This happens in negotiations and interviews. Like, we always are like, what's the, like, where is the blemish? Where is it? We're like looking for that thing. And so what people will do in negotiations without even realizing it is they will prod and ask questions to try to find the soft spot. And when they find it, their brain's like, yeah, gotcha. And those can be very bad for negotiation because it lowers trust. So what I like to do, and I do this in my courses as well, is I try to think of every potential gotcha moment, and I try to address it extremely early. So you'll notice it. So in all of my Creative Live courses, I always have slides that are like myth, body language is stupid, fact, and then I list like a bunch of studies about why body language is not stupid, right? Myth, body language is innate, you cannot learn it, right? Fact, researchers at the University of British, like a bunch of studies. So I always have those in my presentation for that reason.
Up front too.
Up front. So there was a really cool study, and I love studies.
I can tell, it's incredible. Like, how many studies do you have in your brain?
So many. I don't remember who did this study, forgive me, but they had students talk about a grade they got on a test into a tape recorder. I think it was like a 91%. They were like, oh, I got a 91% on this algebra quiz. In one version, at the very end of the recording, they spilled their coffee, and you can hear on the audio, oh shoot, oh, I spilled my coffee, oh, and they like have like the mopping it up sounds. And the other one, they cut off the video before he spills the coffee. And they ask people, how likable is this person? They found that people like far more the coffee spiller. The reason is because he had good news. He talked about his 91%, but like he dropped the other shoe for them. So there was no gotcha moments. So he became much more likable. Yes, so it ties into vulnerability. It ties into trust. It ties into radical honesty. And so what I would say in negotiation beforehand is think about like what are your gotcha moments and don't try to hide them. Like that's the worst thing you can do in a negotiation. Actually, your best thing to do is bring them up during the pitch. You might be wondering, you might be worrying about. I know you're probably thinking, right? Like those are like and that's when you take away their gotcha moment, because in their head, then it isn't a gotcha, it's a whew. And like that is a way better emotion than gotcha. Way better.
My head is exploding with how much of this stuff you have.
If you only had as many studies in your brain as my brain.
Oh my God.
It's full of.
Fortunately for us, you put it in a book.
Yeah, most of it. Yes.
Like the courses that I'll do it one more time here. This is a tight shot for you, Matt. My advanced copy has a few dog years. The courses that you have in Creative Live, you've got, I think, 4 now?
4, yeah. Coming up on 4, yeah.
Super powerful.
Yeah.
Is there a piece of your work that you feel like is the most easily digestible? Is it the body language stuff? I consider myself, I'm very comfortable in my own skin. You and I have talked about this. You analyzed me in the back of an Uber.
Yeah.
But I have, one of the things I'm trying to is like flip and see what am I naturally good at that I could give others, or what are some things I see in culture that aren't talked about a lot. Emotional intelligence, body language, negotiation, a lot
power,
of this kind of stuff. Power, use that word.
Happiness.
Happiness.
I mean, one of our courses is on happiness.
Yeah, and so I'm looking for ways to add value. Is there any one of those things that you feel like is the most accessible, where you'd start, like, point someone on the Creative Life side? The happiness or the body language thing. But you also talked about it being a more of a vitamin instead of an aspirin. Right.
So I think that it actually two different things. Either you're like yes, like that's me, or like no, that's not me. So there's not one. So I would say here are the questions you want to think about.
Okay.
Does the idea of decoding people or learning lie detection feel just like so sexy to you? That's the body language course, right? Like that is so the body. Other people are like, not my thing. The other aspect of, I think, the science that appeals to people is personality. So, are you one of those people who loves those quizzes online where it's like, which Harry Potter house are you? Do you know what I mean? I love those quizzes.
I know you do.
I love them. Guess which house I'm in?
I don't know.
I'm Gryffindor. No, I wish I was Gryffindor. I think I'm more Ravenclaw. But anyway, so yeah, like which Harry Potter house are you? What color are you? All those personality quizzes, that would be my personality science. So just, I want to debunk a myth out there.
Okay.
There's a lot of personality tests out there, like DISC and Myers-Briggs. The only one that is based in real academic science is called the Big Five.
Okay.
And so in one of my courses in Master People Skills, I talk about the science of personality. And I think that for me, in terms of deepening my relationships, that was a big game changer. So I think that two different sides could appeal to different people.
Cool. I'm going to do a speed round now
Oh.
because one of the things that I realize is that, okay, I've already been going for like an hour and change, and
My goodness.
I want to.
I feel like it's been 10 minutes.
I know. I'd like to get a few things out about you specifically because we've been talking about your work,
Yeah.
all the insights, the tactics, and I know that's the audience at home is they've asked me, and so I try and deliver that value, but I want to get into you
Okay.
with a couple of
Speed round, does that mean I have to be quick with my answers? Brevity is not my strength.
Ideally,
Okay.
but
I'm gonna
more
do it.
just
I'm gonna do
yeah,
it.
just more like what's your intuition?
Is it like boxers or briefs?
Yeah, no, not
No.
that.
Okay. I'm excited.
But, yeah, that would be an interesting question. Come to think of it.
Or like vanilla or chocolate? No, sorry.
What's something that if people didn't know it, they would be surprised to find out about you? Like they go, huh, no way.
I won't give this answer, but oftentimes that I'm an ambivert, that I'm not an extrovert.
Radical honesty.
I know. I mean, I want to give
Yeah,
something good.
I get it.
I would say that I love to be alone in terms of like the forest, like not the city. I'm like not a city girl. I'm not a party girl. I'm not a nightclub girl. I never like rushed or anything in college, so I'm like
Despite having as much energy as you have.
Yes, and despite traveling all the time.
And 2 Phil's coffees.
And 2 Phil's coffees. God, I love Phil's coffee. Sponsored.
So you're actually
I like to be alone. I love the forest. Like I will choose the forest over a nightclub any day of the week. Like I don't even like concerts. Like I'm like that person who like doesn't know music. People are always like, what?
You don't want to go see the show?
Oh, last night, I'm also really tech not savvy. Last night I learned how to send a GIF for the first time. I did not know how to do that. My friends activated it on my phone for me, and I was like, magic!
Yes.
And so now like everyone is like getting just like GIFs from me. So I'm very like tech unsavvy. That would be another one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something that you feel like you would be revealing on the show, and this is like you're going to do the work here.
Okay.
What do you feel like is something you can reveal here that is just not widely known about you at all? Not just the forest thing, because that's something that people would be surprised by.
Right.
Is there a thing you would like to share with the world?
Yeah, I think.
Because no is not actually it's not.
Yeah. I can't just say no.
Yes, this is what it calls when I'm buying time.
No, I know this one. So this
Okay.
one is, I am uncomfortable almost all the time when I'm not alone, and so much so that during my last Creative Live class, I was right in this room actually.
You were probably standing right where you're sitting.
I think I was standing right where I was sitting, and I don't know if you can see it in the video, but I actually had hives from my wrists all the way up my body, all over my back. And like on the day of filming, I had to go to the doctor to like look at them because they were like, I was so anxious about being on stage. So, like I don't know if I think you might be able to see them on camera. They started like right here, and I had to like get new outfits to wear.
Longer and longer sleeves. Oh, that makes me feel so.
No, but like it's like I do this because I love it, but like there is a toll it takes in a certain sense. Like it's very out of my comfort zone. So I don't have them today, which is like a wonderful thing. But yeah, I have hives a lot of the time when I'm really anxious.
You're so good on camera.
Thanks.
It's incredible that it gives you hives because you're just a natural.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So yeah, if you watch the happiness course, you'll see them.
That's so. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I next question.
Yeah.
Give me some advice.
Okay. Oh God. Do you ask this of everyone?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Matt's like, I've never seen him ask this question before. This is risky, by the way, Chase. You're not going to want to do this on the next show.
I would say that if I had to give you advice, I would tell you that specifically with people, I don't think you realize the effect that you have on people. And I don't think that you realize that every time you interact with someone, even if it's a very small thing, people remember that more than you do. And so it would be to keep that in mind, that like people around the office. I actually was just in the car yesterday with a friend who was like, oh, I met Chase many years ago, working with a modeling agency. I was booking stuff for his photography. And I was like, and she was like, oh, he would never like remember me. But she remembers that moment. She remembers what you were wearing. Like she remembers it really well. And so I would say to you, I don't know if you realize that you have an impact on people, and no pressure, but the little moments, people will really remember them with you. And that does not happen with everyone. That does not happen with me. But it happens with you.
I will do
Just
my very
keep it in the
best
back of your head.
make use of that.
And I totally didn't know you were going to ask me that.
No,
so.
I also just felt like I've got a large burden to carry.
It is kind of a large burden.
No.
It is. It is in a good way.
But yeah, I'm actually I think I was jesting. I'm inspired by that. Thank you.
Yes.
I love humans. I think that's one of the reasons that I love you and your work, because I feel like have uncorked so much. I've watched people have massive aha moments with you and your work.
Yeah.
What's next?
The book is a big one.
When's it drop?
April 25th.
April 25th.
And then I'm going to
Pre-order now?
Yeah, pre-order now. Oh,
okay.
Please pre-order now.
Pre-order that.
Because then they print enough copies. They print enough copies. So yes, pre-orders are amazing.
Okay.
And then the next one is we're going to start doing anti-networking events in cities.
Of course you are anti-networking.
Yeah.
Who would want to network?
Yeah, because networking just sucks. It just sucks. And so we're doing a bunch of anti-networking events in cities around the world where there are very alternative ways to network. So that's kind of the next adventure.
I have seen several blog posts of yours recently.
Yes.
And they have extraordinary titles. They're very evocative.
They're very evocative. Yeah, like borderline, like provocative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just list some of them to inspire folks to go check out some of your writing? Because it's so good. And obviously that kind of writing is what's embedded in the book. But just give us a couple titles.
Yeah, so we have one that's called I Dare You, and it's about a bot that I built. So at networking events, I get really anxious and I pretend to text with people who aren't texting with me. And so I was like, what if I built a bot that was like an imaginary friend but actually sent me advice? So we built a little free bot where you can text us and we will text you back conversation starters, dares, jokes, tips.
Oh, that's so cool.
So you can text us.
But that's not evocative. Here's some other ones, other blog post titles. Keep it going.
I like that you're weird. That's one of my blog posts.
That's awesome.
Which is why I'm encouraging you to be weird.
Okay.
How to be interesting is another one,
interesting.
which is one of the most common search terms to get to our website, and I didn't have a post about that. So I was like, what? Like, how many people are Google searching how to be interesting? If you're Google searching how to be interesting,
pay attention to
yeah,
words.
we got a lot to work on.
There was some stuff I felt.
Oh, make people want you?
Yes, maybe that was but I think it has a more sexual undertone than this.
Make people want you is kind of
I guess
sexual.
that's pretty sexual, or not.
Make people want you. The body language of attraction, female body language, more sexual. Oh, how to turn people on.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that was it.
was that
pretty
it?
overt, kind of.
It's sad that I have so many that I'm like, oh, it could be that one. It could be that one.
No, but and the thing that I want to emphasize before the folks at home go check out these things is that they deliver on exactly what you're saying the title is.
I try.
And it's super actionable.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowingly.
I'm addicted to black and white. I think that I like. Here's something some sexual innuendo. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I like the hard side of soft skills.
That
was good. That was a good one.
And, yes.
It took me hours to think of that. Yeah. So that one. I like the hard tips, the black and white tips.
Okay.
No soft skills, no gray. The hard side.
Yeah.
You like that, right?
I do. Yes, it's powerful. I was going to do another innuendo on top of it, but I'm just going to let it go there.
Okay.
Congratulations on the book.
Congratulations
on your new Creative Live classes. You have delivered so much value. For the folks at home, if you are interested in anything relating to what we've talked about, you and your content, your whole ecosystem delivers in spades. I want to say thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I'm going to continue to recommend that you speak to all these different groups that I bump into. I'm super inspired by you and your work. How do we find you out on the internet? You're at VVE.
V Van Edwards on Twitter.
Let's do that one more time. V Van Edwards.
Yep, V Van Edwards on Instagram and Twitter. ScienceOfPeople.com. Come play in our lab. We have so many fun experiments. Come play with us. And then the book is wherever books are sold. I've always wanted that. Wherever books are sold. I think that's true. Yeah, I think they're wherever books are sold.
There you go. Captivate is the title, the science of succeeding with people. Thank you so much, friend. I'm so happy that
Thanks for having me. Signing
off for another episode. I will see you next week.